Welcome to Lord of Heroes News on Nyris Gaming. We have info today on the new upcoming heroes Water Johan and Dark Lucilicca, so let's get into that, shall we? Here is Water Johan as we saw him on the 18th. Let's get into the details of what he can do. So as we found out on the 18th, he is a Water Guardian, and here are his level 1 and level 60 stats. He's going to lean heavily into the health stat, and we are going to see that that's very helpful for him. His defense is kind of absurdly low for a tank character, but you probably run with 1 or 2 defense just to balance out his health, but you're going to want to lean heavily into health as we get into his skills. So for his S1, it attacks the selected enemy, 60% chance to reduce the target's attack power for 2 turns. That's really good for a debuffer tank. And the damage of this increases based on his maximum health. And that's going to be a common theme with all of this. S2 is going to be a 4-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies, 70% chance to reduce all targets' crit rate for 2 turns, and additionally raise all allies' crit resistance for 2 turns. Damage increases based on health. So this is a new feature, and a welcome one at that. I believe this reduces the damage they take from critical strikes by either 15 or 30%. I'll have to double check on that. S3 is going to cost 3 spirit, attacks a selected enemy, heals the user's health by 30%. Doesn't heal him based on damage, heals him by 30% specifically, and has a 70% chance to grant immunity to all allies for 2 turns, and damage increases based on his maximum health. So you're not going to have to lean into damage for him or crit chance or anything. He's going to get 30% healed no matter what damage he does. So that's handy, especially considering he is not a DPS. The 70% chance to grant immunity to all allies is quite lovely as well as a buff. So this makes him a little bit more viable to run in the burst slot in a raid if you're going into something that is debuff heavy. His stat passive is predictably going to be health, and his elemental passive is going to be increased damage against fire elemental enemies. We will have to wait until the update to see what their skill level increases are going to be, so we will get into that on the 24th. Dark Lucilicca, OG Lucilicca from the normal story. Going to be a warrior as we saw. Here are her level 1 and level 60 stats. Her health is going to be a bit low, but her defense is going to be on the higher end, so she's going to want to lean more into defensive stats. And as we will see in a second, she's going to be quite the debuffer warrior, along with some other new tricks. So her first skill brings in another new debuff that we have not even heard of before. Attack selected enemy, 70% chance to inflict target with elemental weakness for 2 turns. This is going to render all attacks against the target as considered to hold an elemental advantage. So I would imagine this renders, if you're going against something that has an elemental advantage against you, it nullifies that and flips the tables on them. So you will be doing the extra damage instead of them receiving reduced damage. So that is a interesting mechanic to spec in characters that would not normally be able to do quite as much without the elemental advantage. Skill 2 is a 4-turn cooldown, attacks a selected enemy, grants immunity and damage resistance to the user for 2 turns. So that's going to make Dark Lucilicca quite more durable and immune to status effects. Quite handy for someone who you want to be applying their debuff. Her burst skill is going to attack the selected enemy and has an 85% chance to deal 100,000 true damage to the target while ignoring all buffs. So this cannot be affected by any multipliers of any kind or any other buffs. It's going to be 100,000 regardless of what you do. However, true damage is going to be exactly 100,000. It is not affected by defense or any other buffs on the enemy as well. And I would imagine, given it's an 85% chance to deal that damage, it's probably going to be on top of whatever else damage she does with the burst itself. So it's just an extra 100,000 damage on top of that. So that's going to be interesting to play around with. Her stat passive is going to be speed, and her damage passive is going to be extra damage against light elemental enemies. We also have Water Joshua coming back, but that is not a new hero. That is going to be covered in a hero spotlight at some point in the near future. Thank you for tuning in to Lord of Heroes News on Nyris Gaming. I will see you next time.